I am Borderlands noob, and if you're like me, you've been playing Borderlands 4 and you are not thrilled with the performance. So I've done some testing. It seems to be pretty GPU intensive. So I did get some data on that. My data is imperfect and anecdotal, but hopefully it'll help you get your game to a more playable and enjoyable state. All right, so getting into it, these are the settings I use that are static for the most part. Baseline settings, low as possible, display resolution 1440p, NVIDIA DLSS performance for 720p internal resolution upscaling, NVIDIA reflex off, VSync off, field of view 110, and the baseline FPS that we're going off of, this will be our 100% value that most of these results will be calculated from, is 112. Hardware, AMD 9700X CPU, 4070 Super GPU with 12 gigs VRAM, 32 gig system DRAM at 6 gigahertz, Western Digital Black SN770 NVMe. Now, fast forwarding a bit, here is the testing I did. This is my methodology. I stood in this spot and changed one setting at a time, and then measured the performance difference by eye. So it's going to be rough. These are rough values. This methodology is imperfect because, like volumetric fog, for example, I don't see much fog in this area. I don't see where it would be other than maybe along this cliff. I also didn't test a combination of most settings, like volumetric fog with the highest lighting. But then here is a picture of all of my results right here. So to read this, and I will put this in the description, by the way, if it'll fit. To read this, HLOD range near 112 FPS, that's the baseline. It's 100%. Medium settings, so medium range, also 112, bar 110. So that is a 2% drop off and 98%. There are some that have slightly different baselines, like reflections right here. I went to a different location, so its baseline is actually 119. And then this one down here, I was measuring volumetrics at 1440p native, no DLSS, and 720p internal, upscaled with DLSS to 1440p to see if the resolution affected them, to see if they scaled based off of resolution to be more impactful. And clouds didn't seem to care. They're within margin of error. On the very high setting for fog over here, it did seem to impact it on the highest, a very high setting. Anyway, that's my methodology. We'll go through these one at a time and I'll show examples of each. Starting off with HLOD range medium. So this is 100%. This is what it looks like. There are cliffs in the way, so you can't see what's beyond that. With that, no loss at all. Next, we have bar. That's a 2% drop off, so theoretically something is loading in. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to geometry, moving it up from medium, maybe you can see something here. Like nothing on the gun, maybe something different, but if we go to high, this is a 2% drop. I would stay at medium 110. Oh, I'm sorry. These have the same drop in value. If you're going to increase it, then yeah, go to high, I guess. And from there, textures, if you have the VRAM, just do whatever. If you have enough VRAM, there's no difference in performance. Medium, we go to highs. I don't even see any differences. I squinted. And then very high. Pretty much the same. And there's no difference. This 99% is margin of error, so whatever. Next up, we have anisotropic filtering. The base was off the testing, so that's why this first value, 1% at 112 FPS, is 99%. Because I just didn't include the baseline. But anisotropic filtering, I'm just going to tell you right now, you probably want to just take the 3% hit and go to 12 times. If not, I guess 2 times is fine. But the ground right here could be better. Go to 2 times. If you saw right there, well, that is noticeable. The ground has a lot more depth with just 2 times. Fast forward a little bit to here. This is 4 times, even more depth right here. Anisotropic filtering is very important. And now if we go to 8 times. Yeah, there's some more depth right here. And 16 times, the one I would recommend if you can afford it. Honestly, not much of a difference. But it's about the same performance hit, so as 8 times. So 12 times if you can afford it, and 2 times is better than off at just a 1% performance hit. Next up, we have foliage. If you notice, no foliage back here. Now we have like 5 patches of grass. Very low performance hit on very low, just 1%. If we go too low, though, right here, that is a 4% performance hit. If you're trying to save on resources, I would recommend trying to at least hit low so you have some foliage. If not, just turn it off maybe. Medium definitely looks better, but the performance hit is 6%. That's an additional 50% performance hit from low. Apparently I was checking out the range on that foliage. Oh, and that's another thing, the distance. So here on medium, if we look out here, finally see it on this little ridge right here. We go back to low, barely there. Then if we go to high, it's clearly there, but we also have some patchiness out here in the distance. Then if we go to very high, also high was a 9% hit to performance. Very high is an 11% hit to performance, and this is for me like too crowded. But it looks very nice. I wouldn't recommend it for like combat, I guess. So for me, I'd say medium. It's fine. It's only a 4% performance hit, and you still get enough vegetation that it doesn't look unnatural. And you also don't get the bushes that you get on medium. If you like those, medium, it does look good. It's all personal preference, I suppose. High again. Let's see it one last time. And then going on to volumetric fog. Here's the baseline over there. This is medium. No hit to performance at all. Going to high. Switch back and forth. I just don't think there's fog in this. Then going to very high. Yeah, I don't see a difference, but very high does have a 4% drop in performance, so I'd say medium to high, and if you do encounter performance issues, maybe drop it 1 tier. In heavily foggy areas, if there are any. Then going to clouds. I'm not looking up at the clouds. I'm keeping everything very consistent. I did test some other stuff for clouds later that will showcase the visuals of them. But for now, we're just keeping the test consistent. So volumetric clouds going from low to medium, a 1% hit. Play. Going from, I could scroll from medium to high. It's about the same performance. Around it, it's the same performance. And going to very high, I was curious in my testing and actually looked up to see any clouds. But there was a 2% total drop once I looked at the ground and started watching the FPS. Once it stabilized. Then moving on to shadow quality. First up, shadow quality medium. No hit to performance. It might be dependent on VRAM. Then we go to high. High versus medium. Maybe? Tough one. I can't tell the difference from that far away on these distant shadows. Very high clearly has an increased resolution, but it is 720p upscaled to 1440p DLSS. The shadow quality will be improved, but at this distance, it won't be noticeable if using DLSS. Then going to directional shadows. This one, I think, affects big objects like this huge tree in the background. Look at this shadow right here compared to what it's blurrier in this previous section for the shadow quality, because it's only shadow quality that I changed. This one I changed directional shadows, so we get an increased visuals on that. And if we go up from medium, which actually gained me performance, because why wouldn't it? It's an open world thing, there's margin of error, stuff happens. But if we go up to high from medium, it's still at 100%, the 112 FPS. I was just looking at the shadows here. And if we go to very high, there's a lot of stability around the shadow of this large object now. Oh, you know what? Okay, directional shadows are actually, looks like all of the shadows from trees and things. The shadow setting, shadow quality must be for like player characters and weapons and things like that. But directional shadows, a 1% hit in this situation on the highest setting, I'd probably recommend high, maybe medium if you're trying to make sure you don't performance anywhere. Then if I put both on very high, what it looks like, and it's still a 1% hit to performance. This is with directional shadows and shadow quality maxed out. In this case, 1%, perfectly fine. If you have the headroom, yeah, just max them both out, whatever. Next up, volumetric cloud shadows. I turned that on. I don't know how this interacts with volumetric cloud quality, if increasing their quality also increases the load, but at the lowest setting, there is a measurable 5% decrease to performance. So I just turned that off. You don't need shadows from clouds in the game. It's neat, but for 5%, I don't think it's worth it. And moving on to lighting, going from low, medium, we lose 4% performance. That's not great. but going from medium to high, which does look better. We've lost 12% performance. So lighting is definitely a huge factor here. I think it's lumen in Unreal Engine 5, so it's very taxing. But if we go to very high, what is it, 21%? We've lost 21% of our performance just in lighting. And I can't tell the difference between distant lighting is better. Up close lighting, the stuff you care about, peaks at high. If you have the headroom, high looks nice. Otherwise, I'd go medium if you really need the performance. Go low. That is the baseline. Highlighting, very highlighting. And then if we go to reflections now, this is a different methodology. I went to a location that had reflections. I did want to test them. So the baseline is now 119 instead of 112. And from here, you can see that the low setting has screen space reflections. If we look at the other settings, they all decrease performance by quite a bit. So I think this is also another thing. I think they're ray traced. So if you can't afford ray tracing, maybe your card doesn't support it, or it's just too taxing on your card or your system, or you just don't care for it, keep that at low. If screen space reflections are perfectly fine to you, there's no reason to increase the setting here. But if we go to medium, if you notice, I can see the tower right there. While it's not on screen. So this is what looks to be ray traced reflections. And also, if you notice, there's a fog here. While I'm looking up, when I look down, the fog disappears. That seems to be screen space reflected. Or maybe the fog is a screen space fog, and when you look down, it disappears, and then now the reflection is clear. So it's just interesting. Anyway, there is medium, 8% hit just for medium. Here is high, 15% hit. Honestly, not different enough to care. And then very high, also a 15% hit. Same thing. Can't tell the difference between that and medium. So I'd go with medium if you want ray traced stuff. If you don't care about it, save the performance and go with low and just use screen space. Now we're doing shading back at this spot. Medium is approximately a 1% hit. Not much to say there. Then if we go to high, it's a 7% performance hit. Oh, also, interesting note, when I changed it and loaded back into the game, see those things flying around, everything had to reload into the game, and my CPU usage was at 99%, so until that stabilized towards the end, I wasn't able to even get an idea. Here we go. About 104, 104, and 104. That's where I got that 104 from. Now that it's stabilized. So after that, I went to test volumetrics in another location at 1440p without DLSS, so it's a higher resolution, to see if volumetric effects scaled with resolution like it does in Cyberpunk. And on low fog, this is our new baseline, 100%. And then if we skip to medium, I don't see a difference in fog here. Again, this might just be a location that doesn't have fog. But if we go to high, it's still not seeing a difference. Stuff happening over there just looks like it's lighting stuff, time of day change. but that's a 1% hit. Finally get a hit to performance, but if we go to very high, suddenly we get a 10% hit to performance, which is much more aggressive than our 4% hit on 720p. Everything up to that point is margin of error, up to 1% difference. Until that, if you're going 1440p or above, maybe just down medium or high if you don't want a random 10% hit to performance. And now we're doing clouds. It has the same baseline as the fog original test I did earlier, but we're on medium. I did make a mistake, and I have it on medium, but right here I have high. This is medium, not high. And clouds up above, honestly, this is what they look like before. There's like a flickering instability. Just going low to medium is a huge increase in performance when looking up at the clouds, and no performance hit at 1440p, and margin of error for 720p. So I see no reason not to at least have clouds on medium at all times. But then if we go to high, the actual high value, yeah, it looks better. Maybe if you squint. 1440p, I'd say high is fine. Maybe if you go higher, it could be problematic. Going to very high, there's a 3% hit to performance. So 1440p and above, it is more taxing potentially in margin of error than 720p. So high, I'd say, if you're going 4K, maybe medium. 1440p high is fine. That it? Oh, I guess that's all the testing I did. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, stuff's in the description below. Yeah, and that's it. Hopefully this was helpful. If you see a Digital Foundry video, trust them more than me. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but have yourself a great day, and bye. Jesus Christ. Oh.